Thank you. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the St. Louis VegFest. How about giving it up for this awesome event? Yes. And how many of you have heard our story on YouTube or anywhere? Okay, great. I'm glad to know that. How many of you haven't heard the Rowdy Girl story ever? Oh boy! After today, I hope you two are a Rowdy Girl fan. Now, I'm not Rowdy Girl, although I do have the tattoo. Rowdy Girl is a cow. And Rowdy Girl is a cow that actually inspired me to go vegan on a Texas cattle ranch in Angleton, Texas. So, how in the heck did that happen? I'm 63 years old. I married my husband, Tommy, not once but twice. Tommy is a multi-generational cattle rancher, and his family had cattle ranching dating back into the 1800s. They used to drive cattle from San Antonio, Texas, to Houston, to Alvin, and that is where they had two slaughterhouses, one in Houston and one in Alvin. My husband has the spurs, he has the brands. It's called S-O-N, the S-O-N brand. And my husband should never in a million years have gone vegan. But because he married me not once but twice, and because we were destined as soulmates, when I started seeing the baby calves go to the sale barn on our cattle ranch, I began to be very conflicted. I always loved animals. Animals was a big part of my life. I grew up loving animals. I grew up knowing that animals were my friends. But the thing was, I never had the opportunity to connect with farm animals. You know, I had dogs, I had cats, I had scorpions, I even had dirt daubers. You know, I always loved anything that was alive, and I tried to keep it alive. But I never thought about farm animals. I never considered that when I was eating a chopped steak, or a chicken fried steak, or chicken wings, or bacon, I never considered that that was an animal that had any feelings. It never dawned on me. And I wonder why that is. I wonder why we live in a world that absolutely pushes back the notion that farm animals have feelings. Well, I know now that there's billions of dollars that are poured into animal agriculture, into the media, to prevent us from seeing with real eyes who we are eating. Well, you know, I wasn't I wasn't that person, you have to follow me around, baby. I wasn't that person that really connected. But most people aren't, are they? Most people aren't connected to who they're eating. I mean, how many of you eat hamburgers and bacon and cheeseburgers and milk? Anybody in here? We're all vegan in here? Are we all vegan? Yay! All right. Hey, and if you're not vegan, would you raise your hand? You're not. I'm glad to know that. Because see, I wasn't always a vegan. I was a former cattle rancher, for goodness sakes. I always say to people, you know, I actually killed animals for a living. That was what we did. But I never took the knife and slit their throat. Myself, I always ate the chopped up, dead, hacked up animal bodies that other people killed. And that's what it is, right? It's chopped up, dead, hacked up animal bodies called of animals and shoving them through whatever that is, that turns it into sausage and hamburger meat, and we eat that, and we don't even really know what it is. I mean, it could be anything, right? It could be anybody's body. Who the heck knows who that is or what that is, yet we eat it. It's because we're programmed. We're programmed to eat it, yet when we hear about it or see it on a video, we're going, oh my God, do not show me that. I don't want to see that, do I? Right? No! But, yeah, we eat it. So anyway, getting back to the story. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I was a former country western singer. I actually toured all over Texas and other parts of the country with my own country western rock and roll band for many years. That's why I'm not afraid of the microphone. Look out, I might break out and sing any moment. In my heyday, I used to take a wireless mic like this and run through the aisles singing crazy in the laps of whoever would let me. And my husband was one of those guys. All right? So my husband, that's how we met. We met at a bar, and I wasn't vegan, and I was singing. I had on red spandex and a satin shirt, and in walks this really good-looking guy and sits down, and I stepped off the stage with a spotlight on me, all like this over here, and I went over and I sat in his lap, and I sang crazy. And it's been crazy ever since. I assure you, our life together has been one heck of a ride. That was the first time we married. And then we divorced because, well, it's no secret. I talk about it very openly. I had a real problem with alcohol back in the day. I'm in recovery today, thank the Lord. Thank the Lord, and everybody else is out there is glad I'm in recovery too, I promise. So not only do I not drink, but I don't eat animal bodies either, or what comes out of them. So, now everything that I do is all about being straight up sober and straight up clean from my inside out, so that I can be a channel, be the vessel for whoever brought us into this life. I really do believe that we are here to be the best expression of ourselves that we can be. And when you grow up on a cattle ranch, like I did, or not grow up on, I married my husband, and I feel like I grew up on a cattle ranch as long as I've been vegan now, and the story just keeps growing. But I didn't grow up on a cattle ranch. I lived there with my husband. See, we got married in 2010 for the second time. And whenever we got married, I moved to the cattle ranch. Well, actually, I moved to the cattle ranch in 2009 because we were living in sin for a year. Just kidding. But we did live together for a year. And then we got married. And, I really didn't want to live on a cattle ranch. I was from Houston, a city girl, and I enjoyed the city life, okay? I didn't like the dirt, on my feet all the time, and the bugs and the cow crap and all that, it didn't interest me until I met a little baby calf named Rowdy Girl. And that changed everything for me. So, what happened was, my husband really, really wanted me to get involved in the cattle ranching business. I'm gonna get you to stand up, come right over here. But my husband really, really, really wanted me to get involved in the cattle ranching business, right? And I wouldn't participate. I didn't want to open the gates. I didn't want to help him bale hay, okay? I didn't want to help him open gates and mend fences. I wanted to do my yoga and my singing, and you do that, I do this, and never the twain shall meet. Well, until he came home and said, Renee, there's these two little calves up the road and they don't have a mama. And I'm just wondering if you'd like to buy those calves a ball field. Well, I didn't have any kids of my own, and it tugged on my heartstrings. I mean, little baby calves. Who in here doesn't like a little baby calf? I mean, especially a little baby calf that they just run up to you and they're so friendly and sweet. And I said, okay, I'll go look at them. Well, as soon as I looked at them, I bought them. $300 each. I got bought into the business, hook, line, and vegan seeker. I always think about what I say now. But we got those calves home, and one of them passed away very, very young. That was Bobo. And Bobo, she just couldn't thrive. She had what was called a failure to thrive disease, and she passed away like within a week after we got her. She never got her colostrum. And so, but little Rowdy girl thrived. She was like a bouncy bundle of joy. I would go out and feed her twice a day, and it just brought tears to my eyes. She became like an extension of me. And I wasn't a vegan, I was a cattle rancher. But she, for whatever reason, became an extension of me because she needed me, I needed her. It was like, it became this thing. I would feed Rowdy Girl, this little baby, and she's still alive, y'all. And then Rowdy Girl would start feeding me a line like a communication to the rest of the cows. I don't know how to explain this unless you've had this experience. I don't know how to explain it other than it was like when I was feeding her, I went down a rabbit hole like in Alice in Wonderland, and I could see things totally different. I started seeing all the baby calves and their mamas. I started being able to tell them all apart. I started naming them, or they were telling me their names. I just started recognizing them, as individuals. And it was the weirdest thing, because we had a whole herd of Black Angus cattle, and they looked so much alike. It was very hard to tell them apart until I paid attention. Once I started paying attention, I could tell which one's eyebrows went up, which one had a kind of a weird looking tail, or which one had maybe a little bit of white spot right here, or whatever. I mean, I started telling them apart, and I started realizing their names, and oh my God, I found myself wanting to be with them more than I wanted to be at home. And I started spending a lot of time with the cows, and then Tommy would start loading them up. I could always tell when he was loading them up because this red trailer. How many's heard of the red trailer story? Yeah, the red trailer story, right? So the red trailer, he would take that trailer and he'd put it in the middle of the pasture. And when he did that, his partner Robert would come over, and they would start baiting, B-A-I-T-I-N-G. They started baiting the babies. They were 6 months old to go into that trailer. And I started watching. Every day I'd watch. They put that sweet feed in there, and then they would, put a chain up on the entryway to the trailer, so only the babies could get in, and the mamas couldn't. And they did this for several days, so that the babies trusted that it was okay. See, the act of betrayal is so deep. Animals, particularly farm animals, are betrayed by humans every second of every day. They do not deserve the life that they're born into. Calves are born to just be killed. They're not born to have a life. It's terrible what we've done as a society to quote-unquote farm animals. So I would watch this, and then on about the 7th or 8th day, when there was, half a dozen calves in there that were about 6 months old, and the mamas were all peacefully grazing, outside the trailer, the door would slam shut, the chain would pull, and the trailer would take off down the road. And the mamas would start crying, chasing the trailer. The baby's eyes would bug out and tears just poured through their eyes. And the next thing that happened is the trailer would go out of the gate, and we had a 1.5 mile of highway in Angleton. And that trailer full of baby calves would go down that road, Highway 35, and the mamas would chase that trailer along that fence line as far as they could, crying to the top of their lungs for their babies, for their children. And we eat babies. If anyone in here is still eating chicken or fish or beef or pigs, all of these animals are sentient. They all have families, communities, and particularly I know for a fact that the calves that are sold at sale barns are babies. Yet we are programmed to eat their flesh. We're programmed to drink milk that comes from cows when we should not be doing that. I was a breastfeeding baby. I breastfed from my mama for 1.5 years. And when I got done, I didn't need it anymore. My mama didn't, when you're weaned, you're weaned. Why do you think we drink milk from cows? Why do you think that? Because it's a commodity. It's just money. It's just a product. It's a unit of production. In the way that cows are bred into a society, into our world, our society has created units of production out of living sentient beings. The only thing I regret is that I didn't go vegan sooner. That is the honest to God's truth. Is why didn't I know these things? When I went vegan October 31st, y'all. I have a birthday coming up on Halloween Day. You might know I'd go vegan on the night of the dead. And I did. I was actually, let me back up before I tell that story. Because what happened is my husband finally said, Renee, you need to stop blocking me. I kept trying to get him to stop selling the babies. And I wasn't vegan. I just couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the fact that those babies were loaded up and put in that trailer every 6 months. I'd cry every time it happened. And he said, Renee, this is what we do. You can't keep, crying every time we sell calves. This is what we do. But I couldn't stop crying. He'd bring the money home, because you get a lot of money at the sale bar for these calves. And he'd throw it down on my desk. He'd say, you don't mind spending the money, do you? And he was right. Because I did spend the money. There they go. Wow. Oh, Lord. There it goes. Well, anyway, it's windy in here. I would bring that check home, and I knew good well that there was nothing I could do except stuff it down one more time. One more time, I stuffed it down until Halloween Day 2014. Halloween Day 2014, I was actually at home, and I had started watching slaughterhouse videos, okay? And if you're a cattle rancher, You don't really want to watch slaughterhouse videos, but I was watching slaughterhouse videos because I was trying to understand what we were doing. I couldn't believe it. My husband would say, oh, Renee, it's just that PETA propaganda. You know, that it's not really what it looks like. I said, it is too. And so I kept trying to prove to him that it really was as bad as I thought it was. And so I kept watching one video after another, one video after another. I kept watching, and I'd cry, and I'd cry, leading up to that day on October 31st, 2014, when I actually stumbled upon a video by Dr. Melanie Joy. Dr. Melanie Joy has a book called Why We Eat Pigs, Wear Cows, and Love Dogs. Why We Eat Pigs, Wear Cows, and Love Dogs. See, you know, there is a reason for that. Pigs are like the 5th most intelligent animal on the planet. Cows recognize hundreds of faces. Those cows know my face. Not just my voice, my face. You know, chickens communicate like crazy with each other. They communicate with me. Why would we want to eat animals that communicate with one another? Why would we want to eat an intelligent being? Why do we want to think that's okay? Because we're programmed. We live in a society where we're plugged into a matrix that teaches us that it's okay to eat pigs, wear cows, and love dogs. Unless, of course, you live in another country where they eat dogs too. But we don't do that here, I don't think. I mean, and now, horses. I mean, horses are among one of the most egregious animals going to slaughter today. It just breaks my heart to see what's happening to horses. Anyway, October 31st, 2014, I stumbled upon that Melanie Joy video. Have y'all seen it on carnism? Well, this is it. The family's sitting around a table and they're enjoying a big old pot of beef stew. Beef stew. It used to be my favorite. And somebody says, oh, what's the recipe? I sure do like this. And the lady of the house says, well, so glad you asked. You start off with a pound of very young golden retriever. They're eating and all of a sudden they're sick, you know, back in their bowl, and they can't eat anymore because the vision of eating a little chopped up dead puppy is in their head. Could you eat a chopped up dead puppy? No. But if you're eating a pot of beef stew, can you eat the chopped up cow? Some people, I used to eat the chopped up dead, hacked up animal bodies in a bowl, you know, oh, that was so good. Chopped up, dead, hacked up animal bodies. It could be my grandma for all I know. You don't know what's in that bowl. Nobody really knows what's in that bowl of chopped up whatevers. You know, but we eat it. Why do we eat it? Because it says on the package, beef stew. Really? Well, what the heck is that? Do you really know what that is? It's chopped up, hacked up, sentient babies in a bowl. When I saw that for the first time, I was at my mother-in-law's house, right? It was October 31st, 2014. I had just seen that video, and we were going to my mother-in-law's house for the Halloween party, the block party, all the kids, all that stuff. We're going to be there with their costumes on. And we get there, and my mother-in-law brings out this big pot of beef stew, yeah. She brings out a big old pot of beef stew. She sets it in the middle of the table. My ears start ringing. I'm like, I can't eat that. And my mother-in-law says, well, why not, Renee? And I said to her, and everybody in the house, all the grown-ups, all the kids, everybody's playing, talking, everybody, a ton of people in the house. And I said, cause it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies, and I can't eat it. Everybody went silent. My mother-in-law looked at me, her mouth flew open. My sister-in-law went, ew. And And my husband said, Renee. I said, well, it does. There's floating, dead, hacked up animal bodies in there, and I can't eat it. And my mother-in-law says, well, Renee, you can pick it out. I said, no, ma'am, there ain't no more picking it out. It was over. I went vegan right then. I went down that rabbit hole, never to return. My poor husband did not have a chance. I went home, started throwing out all the meat, everything. I wanted all those deer heads. We had hundreds of deer heads and antlers and things. All of a sudden, I felt like I was living in a morgue. And I wanted to have a funeral for all of them. I wanted him to take that backhoe, dig a deep old hole, you know, and bury everybody that was on my wall, and I wanted to have a funeral. He wouldn't do it, but that's what I wanted. You know, and I began to make my husband's life a living hell, for real. Poor guy. I'll never forget it. I mean, I was calling him a murderer. I mean, every time I turned around, I was telling him he was a murderer. And he, in my mind, was. See, I went from being a cattle rancher's wife to loving what we do, to appreciating, you know, the cattle ranching business, to calling him a murderer. You know, and that's what really happened. And I didn't know that my story was going to be rocketed into the fourth dimension, and people around the country were going to be gravitated to this story. I had no idea, okay? All I knew is I had to be true to myself. For the first time in my life, I was going to be true to myself. And I told my husband this. I said, Tommy, you take them cows up the road one more time, you do it, and I will follow that trailer. I will follow it all the way to Selmar, and I'll take your credit card with me. I'll buy every one of them back, and I'm going to bring them back home. You try me. And he knew I meant it. I stood my ground with him, and he was pissed. He said, you stay out of my blank business. I said, this is no longer a business. These cows are our family. And he thought I had lost my mind. And I said, you know what? I have. I lost that mind, and now I got this one. And the one I got right now is so better. Thank God I got this mind now, because with this mind, I actually see these animals. In fact, I saw them so much that I didn't even want to live with my husband anymore. I loved him, but I did not like him at all. I lived with the cows for the next 3 or 4 weeks. In the morning, I'd take my lunch, I'd go out there with the cows, and I'd stay with the cows all day long. I had, something happened. It was like I was becoming part of the herd, you know? I mean, I really do. It says Rowdy Girl Cow Mama right there, because I really became part of the herd. I followed them. When they laid down to rest, I would lay down. When they sat down just to be, I just was with them. When they walked around and ate, I walked around too. I'd get on my belly, and I'd just lay there, and I'd just observe them, and I'd watch. And they started coming to me. And they started laying down beside me. And they started allowing me into their world. And to this day, at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, we have 65 cows, all saved from slaughter, that are my friends and family. They're my friends. They're my family. This year we're actually creating a genealogy chart, because I can tell you every one of their names. I can tell you who their mothers, who their kids are. I keep it all charted. And we're actually going to have an artist do a rendering of the original Rowdy herd and all their babies. And we're going to have an auction this year. Y'all be sure, if you don't follow us, please follow us. Subscribe to our newsletter. A lot of good stuff is going on this year at Rowdy Girl. We're real excited about it. But anyway, so I told my husband, you can't take that trailer out there no more. No more taking the babies. I started hanging out with the cows in the morning. I'd stay out there till it got dark. I'd come back home, and then I'd start giving my husband a living nightmare. I wouldn't let him eat any animal bodies in the house. And I stopped calling it meat. It wasn't meat to me anymore. It was dead animals. And I was, are you eating dead animals out there when you leave? Are you going out there and actually chomping on corpse, the flesh of animals? I'd say stuff like that to my husband. you know, instead of saying, did you go to Chick-fil-A? I said, did you go to that, you know, big chicken factory up the road? You know, I mean, I was just that girl. You know, I wasn't very nice. In fact, I didn't know what I was going to do because my husband was determined to send all the animals to the sale barn because I had lost my mind. He said, I'm just going to sell them all. I'm going to get out of the business, Renee. And next thing that's going to happen is you and me, we're going to get a divorce again. He didn't say that. It was implied. We're getting out of the business, Renee. This ain't working. He would say, you know, the D word, but you know, we neither one of us wanted to get a divorce. But me going vegan was threatening my marriage because I'm married to a cattle rancher. I mean, cattle ranchers' wives ain't supposed to go vegan, y'all. I mean, that's kind of taboo. You know, you don't do that shit. But, you know, you don't do that. And I did that. And my husband was like, Renee, you can't do that. I said, I did it already. It's done. But I'm retiring. He was with Dow Chemical for 40 years. I'm retiring and you're screwing everything up. This is my retirement. I said, it ain't going to be a retirement no more. This cattle ranch is no more retirement. It's going to be a sanctuary. He was like, what? What are you talking about? I said, well, he didn't know it, but I had started a journal on Facebook called The Vegan Journal of a Rancher's Wife. That's where I started amassing thousands of followers. I mean, like almost overnight, people were following because I was pleading with help. Help me, help me, help me. My husband's going to slaughter my herd of cows, and I don't want him to go to slaughter. Please help. Tell me what to do. I mean, I was like out there on social media begging for help, and I started getting help with people. Kip Anderson, who a lot of people know as Cowspiracy, What the Health, and Seaspiracy. He's on our board of directors, and I didn't know who this guy was. I just knew I'd heard he was famous, so I started reaching out to him, and he started helping me out. I started reaching out to people like Howard Lyman. Howard Lyman, the Mad Cowboy, you know him? Well, yeah, I mean, he never would call me back. I kept calling, I got his phone number, I got his email, but I would not stop. I bet I called that man 10, 15 times, I don't know, until one night, Christmas Eve, 2014. I had been vegan all of 2 months. And I called him again and he answered the phone. And he said, now, you gotta know Mr. Lyman. Hello? Hello? I said, Mr. Lyman! He said, yes, this must be Renee. How did you know? It's like, well, you only called me a dozen times and sent me a dozen emails. I guess I figured you wasn't going to give up, so I answered the phone. Merry Christmas. And I just started crying, and I ran to my bedroom, and I started telling him all about my horrible husband. I started telling him just how bad Tommy was, and just how he needed to tell him, you know, the wet floors, and he listened to me rant for 5 or 10 minutes, I don't know how long it was, and he finally said, are you through? I said, yes, sir. What do I do? He said, well, calm down. First of all, you need to remember that your husband is human, just like you. And your husband, just like you, used to not be, you used to not be vegan, your husband is not vegan. And you need to treat him just like you're treating those cows, with compassion. You need to start seeing him through a different set of eyes, Renee. You're going to lose that man. He's a good man. And you know, I listened to him and I was like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. I was expecting him to side with me, but he didn't. You know, he actually, was siding with my husband, and he said, Renee, if I were you, because I told him I wanted to start a sanctuary, what I wanted to do, I told him everything. He said, if I were you, before I did that, I'd go visit the few. I said, I can't do that, he'll kill the cows. If I leave here, my husband's going to kill them cows. He would have. At that point in time, it's like, I was not leaving, and neither was he. Because if I left, Tommy would kill the cows, and if Tommy left, I would take over. Because I was taking over. I stalking him with every step of the way for selling cows. And he didn't know what he was going to do. He had tractor notes, he had land payments, he had, all these payments, that cattle ranchers have. They still were coming due, and I wouldn't let him sell the cows. And so I said to him, look, if you're going to sell the cows, why don't you just sell them to me? He said, sell them to you? How you going to buy my cows? I said, well, will you let me buy them if I can? Because see, I'd been talking to a bunch of vegans. He didn't know about it, but I had a private chat going on in that back channel on Vegan Journal of a Rancher's Wife. And I was talking to vegans, and I started getting up the nerve to buy my husband's cows, to do a fundraiser. So I told him, I said, yeah, I want to buy your cows. He said, all right, Renee, I'm going to play along. I said, so if you sold them at the sale barn right now, how much money could you get for them? He said, oh, if I sold them right now, I could probably get 35, 40,000. I'll give them to my wife for 30. I said, you will? Oh, you'll give me a discount. All right, 30,000 it is. I said, and will you let me lease the land for $1 a year? I mean, I had to think ahead. And he said, sure, Renee, you can lease the land for $1 a year. I said, 2 years? Sure, Renee. He didn't believe I was going to do this, right? But he's a man of his word. You shake that man's hand and it is good as done, all right? That's my husband, he's kind of like a vegan John Wayne type. If you can imagine John Wayne being vegan, that's kind of like my husband. He's that guy. And so, in less than 4 months, I raised $36,000 on a crowdfunder, and I bought my husband's cows. And every step of the way, my husband got lighter, got more convinced. And on May 2nd, 2015, my husband went vegan. A cattle rancher, a multi-generation cattle rancher in Texas. Now me and my husband have a Rowdy Girl Sanctuary and also the Rancher Advocacy Program. Not only have we converted, but we also inspire and motivate other ranchers around the country and even the world to also change the way they farm. If you want to follow Rancher Advocacy Program, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just like Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is. And we also have a website, a standalone website for Rancher Advocacy Program. So, anyway, that's the story. And I'm so glad to have been invited to come out here. We recently moved to Welder, Texas. Welder is just near Austin. I think it's this side of Austin, whichever side that is. But we moved because we got flooded 3 times in Angleton because of climate change. And now we're in Welder. We've got a campaign called Meatless Every Day that you can plug into. There's been a documentarian that's been following our story for the last couple of years. And hopefully that documentary will be out sometime next year. We have a YouTube channel. There's all kind of things in the works. I'm writing a book with Jane Velez Mitchell on the Rowdy Girl story, and all kind of stuff is happening. Please follow us, subscribe to our newsletter, become a member. In fact, I have some papers up here if they didn't all fly away. And for the first 5 people to become members, I'm gonna give away tote bags because I got 5 left. But I have a little booth right over there, or I'll just be hanging out. I'd love to meet you. I'm very personable. I don't consider myself a celebrity. A lot of people think I am. I'm like, I am just a country girl, man. I just love meeting folks. I love talking to folks. I love connecting. I want to thank all of you for coming and hearing my story today, and give yourself a hand. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I'm happy to answer. Bring you the mic.
Yes.
vegan first. And, you know, I mean, learning to be vegan, learning to cook vegan is, you know, it's different. But man, how fun, it's an adventure, right? To cook vegan. So, Tommy loves potatoes, jalapenos, pico de gallo type stuff, you know. And I found that when I would use that kind of stuff, potatoes, onions, jalapenos, and mix all that stuff up with tofu, he'd eat it every time. So that's how I started getting Tommy to eat, you know, potatoes and jalapenos and onions, and that's what we started with. And then whenever Impossible Burgers and Beyond Meat, I mean, we're not the whole food plant-based vegan. We are a comfort food vegan. And you know, I mean, I'm a healthy girl, but you know, I love a good burger, plant-based. Heck, why not? You know, I love a good vegan chicken sandwich. You know, but I don't eat them all the time. But my husband, 24/7. Beyond Meat sausage, you know, the cheese, whatever. My husband loves that stuff. So thank you. That's a good question. Anybody else? Yes.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing your story. I was just curious what you found to be the most effective way to connect with non-vegan audiences.
So the most effective way that I have found to connect with non-vegan audiences, that's a very good question. I ask a lot of questions. So who in here is non-vegan? All right. So this is perfect. So can I ask you a question? So this is how I do it, all right? Why are you here? To learn? So good. So do I seem personal? Yeah, so number one, I never try to make anybody feel judged. Like, I'm not here to judge you. I'm a cattle rancher, former cattle rancher, so why would I ever want to judge you, right? But what is the hardest thing about transition? Are you trying to transition to vegan, or have you ever thought about it? Never thought about it. So are you thinking about it today? You know that cheese? You know where it comes from? It comes from a cow that probably was standing on concrete floors just like this, being milked with machines. It comes from a cow that was impregnated with somebody's fist going up their anus. That's rape. It comes from a cow that has a baby, for 9 months, and that baby is flipped over, and that baby doesn't get the milk, so we get no cheese. But I understand. Empathy for everyone. But telling the truth too, right? See, just telling you that makes me cry. It does. It makes me cry to tell that because I visualize it, I've seen it. I've seen cows stacked side by side by side by side on concrete floors with their udders connected to machines. I've seen their babies taken away from them. It's terrible. Cheese ain't worth it. Not when you have plant-based cheese, All right, so I think we're ready. I don't know what time it is. What time is it, guys? 8 till? Okay, well, I may have time for one more question. Yes.
What was the video you were watching before you became?
That video, it's by Dr. Melanie Joy, and it's on carnism. 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 All right, thank you again. I'll be around to chat with y'all, okay?